Hello everyone, and today I'll go through my GCSE Maths master plan, where I'll go through how I prepared for my Maths GCSE and how you can go about your own preparations. This is a plan on a page. On the left-hand side, I have listed all of the topics which are chapters from one of my textbooks, and then on the right-hand side, I've listed numerous resources which I had available to me, along with my own works and a self-score column. The self-score column is just to the left of the topic list and should be the first column to be filled in. Once you've completed a topic in school, feel free to write in a number between 1 and 9 in the self-score column corresponding to what grade you think you get if you had a test on that topic. This right here is a quick contents guide, which lists all the topics as I have in my own table. This textbook is for the old GCSE, which is why I had to add in an additional topic at the end of the table. However, the vast amount of questions in this textbook make it worth buying, and I'll show it to you later. And here you can see all of my maths resources piled up. And right on the top is the maths textbook on the previous slide. It says AQA GCSE Mathematics for Higher Set, and I'll talk a bit more about it later. There are other resources in the background, including a CGP guide, a Collins book, and a Let's GCSE Success book. And here is a simple list of my resources which I had available to me. So from the top you have your school notes, and in this, when I say notes, I mean working out on questions that I've done. The CGP Math Skills book, a CGP GCSE Maths book, as I mentioned earlier, the AQA Mathematics for Higher Sets, and my own notes, which is my own practice questions. In addition, you have the Let's GCSE Success workbook and the Collins GCSE Maths book. Now onto the resources. So firstly, you have your specification, which you can download and print from your exam board website. The specification covers the bare bones of what you need to know, along with a brief outline of what you can expect to find in an exam, or the topics which you may be examined on. Secondly, you have your own school notes, which could include working out and questions that you've been doing in class since year 9 or 10. As you can see, I have, in the picture, I have 8 maths workbooks from school, most of them full of just working out, which I've done in lessons. And finally, you have your own notes. In the bottom right-hand corner, you can see a picture of my own folders. I completely filled up one folder, so I had to move some of the notes over to a second. Altogether, I have approximately 1,500, just about, pages of working. However, this has been compiled over a long time and includes numerous past papers. On the left-hand side, you can see the textbook which I've been recommending. It has approximately 600 pages of questions on each of the topics that were listed in its contents page. These questions differ in difficulty, as the book says, from grade D to A star, or the equivalent from grades 4 to 9. These questions you can work your way up in each topic until you can confidently complete the A star questions. In addition, the back of the book has answers and mark schemes for your questions, so once you've done a set of questions, you can check your answers and make sure that you've got it right. Additionally, you have a practice book, which you can see just to the right. This practice book is just a source of additional questions and additional help in order for you to prepare for your GCSE. On the right-hand side, you can see the CGP GCSE Maths. This is for the AQA specification. This textbook explains concepts and, again, has numerous practice questions, which you can use in order to revise for your GCSE. The other two resources which I use as a source of practice questions include the Let's GCSE Success, and on the left-hand side, and the Collins GCSE Revision for Maths Higher on the right-hand side. A fantastic website you can use in order to further your understanding of certain topics in maths is Seneca Learning. You can create an account for free and sign up to the Maths AQA GCSE Higher, or whatever your exam board is. You can then revise each of the different sections which you feel that you may be having difficulty in. Seneca will explain the concepts and then provide practice questions in order for you to attempt to solve them and increase your confidence in each of the skills that you need for your Maths GCSE. Before I get into the content covered in the exams and further exam preparation, I'll give you a brief overview. The first maths exam that you'll sit out of the 3 exams is a non-calculator paper. So in this, you'll be expected to use your skills like estimation or rationalizing surds, for example, in order to solve questions. And then your other 2 papers, which you'll be sitting afterwards, will be calculator papers, in which you'll have access to a calculator. I highly recommend that you become familiar with the different functions of your calculator, as some calculators which your school may provide you have additional functionality, such as being able to solve simultaneous equations or to solve quadratics immediately. Don't go overboard with the functionality of your calculator though, as it may be that using that calculator is not allowed in the exam and it could cause your disqualification. This example of the 3 maths exams is taken from the AQA specification. Paper 1 is non-calculator, is worth 80 marks, and you'll have an hour and a half to complete it, and is worth a third of your GCSE. The questions, which are the question styles, which are the same in all the exams, range from short single mark questions to multi-step problems. The more difficult questions will come later on in the paper, and the easier questions will be at the start, so as you continue, the questions will become more difficult. Papers 2 and 3 are both an hour and a half and 80 marks, and you are allowed to use your calculator, and these 2 papers are worth the other thirds of your GCSE respectively. They contain similar styles of questions to paper 1, as I described as short questions and multi-step problems. Again, as you go through the exam, the questions will become more difficult. Now onto exam technique. So firstly, you need to be able to answer the different types of questions. Well, the specification has split them into short answer questions and multi-step questions. For the short questions, these may be multiple choice questions or simple calculations. With multiple choice questions, you can eliminate any incorrect answers, and with simple calculations, you should be able to either estimate or just use your calculator in order to find the answer. Multi-step questions are more complicated as they come in a variety of styles. If a question requires you to use an answer from a previous section, even if you know your answer is incorrect, you can still get marks for using the correct method in further questions, as you're using an incorrect value, but you're using the correct formulae. One way that you can check your work is by checking your answer by putting it back into the original algebraic expression. The expected value should be returned from that. However, if it isn't, then double check your working out and double check your symbols, your positive and negative symbols. Make sure you haven't made any silly mistakes. Another tip is to leave harder questions in the exam until the end. Solve as many of the simple questions first where you know that you can get the marks, and spend more of your time trying to solve the harder questions. One very important tip is to show all of your working out. Even if you don't know how to solve a question, or even if you don't know how to reach a final answer, most of the marks from the mark scheme can be given to you for having correct working out. And even some incorrect answers can lead to you gaining some marks. Final things to remember for exam technique. Once you see a question, attempt to estimate what the answer would be. So that, for example, if it's talking about the weight of a TV, well, a TV is obviously not going to weigh 200 tons or 2 grams. There would be an expected range. And if your answers are, for example, 200 tons, then there might be something wrong with your working. And another key point to remember is to check over your working. You're given an extra 10 minutes if you're working at a mark a minute in order to check over your work, and you should use these 10 minutes fruitfully. Don't just sit there and waste your time. Go over each question and try and solve them again without looking at what you solved it as. And if you get a different answer, then double check over your working, make sure you haven't made a mistake again. And finally, make sure that you're answering the correct question. If the question is asking you to solve or to prove something, or hence or otherwise solve this statement, the final point is relevant in multi-step questions where you might need to use your previous answer in order to get the new answer. One other key thing to note is in questions where you're given a context. For example, someone goes to a shop and buys 200 apples for their party. Make sure that you read through the question carefully and only use the relevant information. Again, here is a table of my resources, which you can see on the left-hand side. And then on the right-hand side are additional columns in which I filled in the date when I completed the resource. So, for example, on the 10th of June, I went through the CGP Maths Skills book, the CGP GCSE Maths book, AQA Maths for Higher Sets, Collins, and Let's. By writing in the date that you complete each resource, you can see which resource you've saturated your knowledge from and which resource you may gain new understanding from. For example, if I had only gone through my school notes once, however I went through the CGP Math Skills book 4 times, then I know that I might want to go over my school notes again and not go through the math skills as frequently. When it comes to revising maths, the most important thing you can do is practice questions. Now, the question is, where can you find these practice questions? So here I've compiled a list of websites from which you can get practice exam questions from. So firstly, you have freeexampapers.com, which is a compilation of many exams from multiple exam boards. As you can see pictured on the right-hand side, you have HUA and Edexcel and OCR, for example, along with other exam boards. And then in each of those folders are multiple exam papers dating back as far back as 2015. Another amazing resource which you can use to revise specific topics is Maths Genie. Simply go to the link and go to the GCSE revision section and then search for whatever topic you're having trouble with. For example, if you're having problems with quadratic simultaneous equations, as pictured on the bottom left, you can go search quadratic simultaneous equations and do some practice questions on them. Afterwards, you can go through the solutions and check your own working against the working of Maths Genie. Other websites that you may decide to use include Maths Made Easy and MyMaths. However, MyMaths may be only applicable to certain schools. Another website which many people find useful is Dr. Frost Maths. This website again has topic-specific questions and also works solutions, so you can go through the working and see how you would solve a question if you were to go through it again. If, like me, you've run out of past papers from your own exam board because you've gone through them all, then you can go to other exam board websites and do their practice papers. Even if it's a different exam board, you can't change how you do maths. So the questions will be maybe in different styles, however will cover similar content such as quadratics or simultaneous equations. Circle theorems and geometry are topics which will come up in every exam board, so you can find practice questions on those everywhere. To summarize, the key points that you should take away from this video are these 2 key points. Firstly, practice questions. Sitting down to revise maths doesn't involve reading a textbook. It involves actively practicing your math skills by going through questions. And don't just go through the same questions from your favorite topic. Pick a topic which you know you aren't good at. For example, circle theorems. Some people may find circle theorems challenging and may try to avoid those questions, but those are the questions that you should be practicing in order to better your skills and make yourself a better rounded mathematician. As one of my teachers always said, there's no point in doing questions in class or doing questions at home if you don't mark them. Otherwise, you might just sit down and write some numbers and there'd be no point to that. So check the mark scheme and compare it to your answers. If you got it correct, then congratulations. However, if you've made a mistake, then you can highlight that question and come back and check it in a different color and correct your working or correct your answer. Make sure that you avoid making those mistakes again. There will come a point where you've done so many practice questions that you'll come into an exam, see one of the questions, and then immediately know this is how I'm going to solve it. I'm just going to change these numbers to fit what I'd done previously.